Good morning. It's Monday morning, and I'm back for another Monday morning map build. Today I'm doing something a little different. I'm just getting my stuff in place. I'm doing a sort of a tutorial, a map build in Clip Studio, which is a program that I like to use for drawing. So let me just get my drawing tablet in place, and we'll start. So I should get these things sorted out before I start. Okay, just bear with me a second here. So this will be sort of a tutorial on how to use map tiles in Clip Studio Paint. Let me just... Here we go. My microphone's being a bit loud today. Why is that? Let me just try and... Oop. Hang on. Where's my... Yeah. Microphone seems to be good. Oh well. We'll just have to muddle through and see how things pan out. So, this is Clip Studio Paint. This is the actual drawing program. Now, I have it set up the way that I like to use it for drawing. So you can set it up any way you like. Like the best way I recommend is to have this panel. Pretty much, this is pretty close to the default setup. You'll have a panel over on the side with all of your tools. You will have pop-up menus over here, which are the control panel for your tools, and I'll show you how they work in a minute. And you'll have a layers palette. Pretty much the most important thing you need are the movement tools, because you're not really going to be drawing. If you're using art assets, you're going to be placing things on the map. And you're just going to need to use the subtools to make certain things that work right. And then the layers palette will be the most important thing that you'll use. So now that we've got the program open, we need to create a blank canvas. So we do that by going File, New, and you'll notice that you have a number of options. There's all these different options. Just use Project, Illustration. You can give it a name. Let's just call it Blank Map. Okay. Now, the next thing that's important are these options right here. So you've got your width and your height. Now that is in pixels. So you want to set... Now I'm going to be doing a 10 by 10 map grid, and I use 180 pixels per each 5-foot map grid square. So let's say for example you were doing a 5 by 5 map, teeny tiny map. You would go 180 times by 5 map grid squares, and that gives you the size of your map. So in this case, I'm doing a 10 by 10 map, so it's actually 180 pixels, which is each grid square, times by 10 equals 1,800. So we need to come along and pop that into our width. Now, because we're doing a square, we pop it into our height. But if you were doing, say, like a map that is, say, 10 by 20, you would work out how many, what 20 grid squares is, and then put that into your height. Same thing. So whatever the multiplication is, you put that in here. Keep the resolution at 72, or change it from whatever you had it set at. If you were doing print, you probably had it set up at 300, but since we're only doing maps for the virtual tabletop for use in programs like Roll20, Foundry, you know, whatever your favorite slice of virtual tabletop application you use. 72 is pretty much the ballpoint. That's what you want to use. And then we have to have a look at our basic color expression. That's the color space that we're going to be working in. So for example, is our picture going to be in color? Is it going to be in black and white? Is it going to be monochrome? You're probably going to be working in color, so just set it to be color. Now, the next step is paper color. This is really user choice. I like to set this to a off-white color because I don't like having a white canvas. A white canvas I find is too bright and hard on the eyes. So I usually set it to an off-white color. Oh, and if this looks a bit weird, you might have the units set to something else like centimeters or millimeters or something. Make certain it's px. Px means pixels. It means that what the numbers that you're putting in here is the size of your image in pixels. So for example, if this was centimeters, and you see how that changed, it actually worked it out. You know, assuming 72 centimeters is your resolution, it worked it out that that's actually 63 centimeters. But we want it in pixels, so let's just put that back. So we want it, for this example, I'm doing 1800 by 1800. And then we go, oh, you can also do a time lapse. I'm not going to. And then we go, okay. There is our blank map canvas. Now, because we're going to be using map tiles and we want to have a grid displayed on our canvas, we want to turn that grid on so we can see it. Now, the grid that we're going to be turning on, only we will see it. It will actually not be embedded in the image. This is just so that we have something to snap our map tiles to. So what we do is we come up the top here, we click View, then we come down and click on Grid, and that turns the grid on. Now you'll notice that it looks not quite right. It's actually too small, and there are little divisions to each grid square. We don't want those. They're not necessary, and we don't want it at whatever this default grid size is. So we come up, we click View, then we click Grid Ruler Bar Settings. Now this is where we set what grid we want to be using. The top little panel determines where it starts drawing the grid from, which, as you can see in the background here, is this little red X. Now you'll just notice that I've pulled it around. So you can actually pull it around, and if you're trying to align a grid to a grid that's already embedded in your artwork, you could, you know, try and position it. But since this is the fresh map, you can either go center or, you know, just top left. Just leave it at that. Down the bottom here is the most important bit. Gap is what size is our grid, or the main lines. See those dark lines? What size is that? Now I use for my map tiles 180 pixels. So I'm making that 180. Now we could leave the divisions on. The divisions are these little lines here. So it's basically, what it's saying is that each grid square will be divided into this many divisions. So if you see here, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 divisions. We don't need that when using map tiles, so I'm going to set that to 1. There's only one division in there. Then, okay. That's setting up our grid. So now when we put art assets onto the map canvas, they will snap to that grid. The next thing we want to do for map building is we want to have some folders that we put our art assets into to sort them, to organize them. That's where this layers palette comes in important. So I'm just going to put it in the middle of the screen. There we go. So I'm just putting it in the middle of the screen. Okay, by default, it whacks in the paper layer, and it whacks in a layer so you can start drawing. Because this is a drawing program. It's, if I draw, see, it's all set up for drawing. But we don't want to use it for drawing at the moment. We just want to put layers down. Drawing will come in handy later if you want to put in bits that the map tiles maybe don't work with. So anyway, I'm going to get rid of that layer because we don't need it. How you do it is you just select that layer. So clicking on a layer selects it. Then we click on this little trash can icon down the bottom. Oop, there we go. It's gone. Now, if you want to create a layer to draw on, this is just so you know how it works. See down the bottom here? This little icon called New Raster Layer. A raster layer is a layer that you can draw on with pixels. So for example, I've got my brush selected. If I create a raster layer, I can now draw in my raster layer. But as I was saying, we don't need it. It's good to know that it's there. So let's get rid of that. Now, we want some folders so that we can organize our artwork. We do that by clicking on this little icon called New Layer Folder. And we're going to need 4 folders. So let's just click it 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're like a folder on your computer. You put things in them. So how they work, double click and you can rename them. So this one at the top, I'm going to call this Features. That's where I put all of my feature elements. The next one down, I'm going to call that Walls, because that's where I'm going to be putting all of my wall elements. Next one down, Floor. Pretty self-explanatory. That is where I'm going to be putting all of my floor elements. And the next one down, I'm going to call that the Ground, because that's where I put all of my ground, or my natural elements. Now, how these folders work is pretty simple. See this little arrow? If I click it, it opens and closes that folder, because sometimes you don't want to see all the contents that's in a folder, because it'll create a list that scrolls down inside this panel. So maybe, you don't need to see everything that's in another folder if you're working in another folder. So let's just say I'm only working in my floor folder. I can open that folder and the contents, although you can't see it now, the contents will expand down to form a list. You'll see that in just a moment. That is our layers folder. Or if you need to get rid of a folder in the layers palette, same thing as getting rid of a layer. You just select it and hit the little trash can icon. Now be aware, it will delete that folder and everything in it. You want to make certain when you're deleting folders that you don't end up deleting a whole heap of artwork that you wanted to hang on to. So let's put this. Now, I usually like to have it about yay big because you want a list. Now, increasing its size and moving it about, just so you know, if you hover your mouse over the button, you'll see it becomes like a little double-headed arrow. When it becomes a double-headed arrow, you can click and you can just move the palette up and down and it changes the size. You can do it on the sides as well, which will make the palette bigger, but I find I like to have it big enough that I can see all of these icons up the top here and all the icons down the bottom, because if you make it too small you lose some of those icons and it's like maybe I needed that icon. So if you just increase it out and then just bring it down until just before those icons, whoops, see he started to change size, just before they start to change size and disappear. That's all you need. So we grab that, put it down here. Now I put it down here because I'm a righty. I draw with my right hand, so this is just a comfortable position to put it. If you're a lefty, maybe putting it down over here. Or if you like to have all of your panels over on one side, you can just drag them around. It's pretty easy. But I like to put it down here. I like to put it sort of about there, so that way I can get access to the scroll bars to scroll around. But, so let's just, now, if the next thing to look at is navigating. So before we start plonking pieces onto the canvas, we want to be able to navigate and pull the map around. So how we do that is pretty simple. You have the view menu up the top here. So you've got the most important bits are 100%. So view 100% will view it at 100% magnification. View 200%, 200% magnification. See how the grid has enlarged? Generally, you're going to be sitting at 100. Now, when it's at 100, you'll notice that, if you want to look at the top edge, you probably need to scroll because it might be off the screen. Now, a quick way, instead of just continually grabbing the scroll bars and scrolling around, a quick way to scroll around is to hit Control. Oops, hang on. Nope. Oh, spacebar. Sorry, I've got it. It took me a while to remember which button it is because I've actually got it mapped to a button on my tablet. So I'm actually, when I use this program, I'm actually not using a keyboard and mouse. I'm using a tablet, and I have a button on the side of my tablet that I can quickly switch to the hand. See the little hand there? So if you hold down the spacebar key on your keyboard, you'll notice that your mouse pointer turns to a little hand, and you can drag around the screen, drag your canvas around. So that's a very quick way of being able to move around. Now this happens regardless of what tool you're in. So for example, if I'm in my drawing tool and I hit spacebar, notice how the hand comes up? There we go. We can just move it around. If I'm in, say, the move layer tool, once again, press spacebar, it switches to the little hand. So pretty much any tool, if you hold down spacebar, it'll switch to the little hand, and you can just move it around. And if you need to, quickly jump back so you can view the whole lot, hit view. The top here is a lot of the different zoom options you've got. Fit navigator means that it's just going to fit the window. This is the navigator. This whole window is the navigator for navigating your canvas. So clicking view, fit navigator means it's going to fit the screen. You can also hit fit to screen, does the exact same thing. The navigator and the screen, same thing. Then there's also an option up the top here, which sometimes, if you're doing a lot of drawing, it's really useful to know, because when you're drawing, you may, if I just do this, and so this shows you the different buttons I've got on my tablet, but you can do this yourself as well. You can rotate the canvas. That's really handy if you're drawing, because being able to rotate the canvas, my wrist only pivots one certain way. Let me just put in a bit here. So this is how my wrist pivots. So if I want to draw things around, rotating the canvas can help. But if you need to get the canvas back to where it was, view, rotate, reset rotation and inversion. You want to hit that, puts it back to normal. And if you want to know, there's also some tools that are very good. I probably should have covered these beginning. top here, the little magnifying glass, it is exactly as its name says. Click, zooms in. Hang on, if you hold down Alt, you zoom back out. Pretty simple. This next one here, move, let's rotate. Allows you to rotate your canvas. And again, you know, reset that rotation back to normal. But generally, you're not going to be using those. You'll pretty much, for the majority, you'll want your canvas, pardon me, at 100% or fit to screen. Generally, I do a lot of my map building in fit to screen. So let's get rid of that bit of drawing. Now, here's the fun part. I use map tiles, or I create map tiles. Now, this is just a Windows, this is just Windows file browser. This is how I navigate all of my junk on my computer. Let's actually get rid of the navigation plane because we don't need to see all that. And we'll hide. There we go. So what I like to do is I set my navigator up so that I've got large icons. Oops. There we go. It's jumping around a bit. I then set the panel to be about yay big and over to the side. Whoops. Not full screen, but over to the side here, because we want to grab pieces from here and drag them onto our map. But there is a special way to do it in Clip Studio Paint. So if we just grab this asset, drag, and we go to drop it on our map canvas, you'll notice something special happens. Clip Studio Paint will actually open the image itself. See how it's opened it here in a different window? It's actually got, so here's my blank canvas. Here's the image that I was trying to drag in. It didn't drag it and put it on my blank map canvas. It opened it as an actual image. That's what Clip Studio Paint thinks that you're trying to do when you just drag and drop. Oops, sorry, I just had to check on something. So yeah, if you just drag and drop, Clip Studio Paint just thinks that you're trying to open the image to edit or view. But if we want to drag it into another image that we've already got open, we need to drag it from our file browser, and this should work the same if you're using like an Apple Mac or a Windows. We need to drag it into our layers palette, not onto our map canvas. This is pretty important. And doing this allows us to actually put it in a specific place in the layers order. So, for example, if I wanted to use this piece of wall, this piece of dead-end wall, accidentally double-clicked it, and unfortunately a double-click for me is automatically goes into Photoshop. That can be a pain. Okay, so let me get back to where I was. There we go. Okay, so we need to drag, not drag it onto the map canvas. We want to drag it over here. Ooh. Silly Photoshop, go away. I use a bunch of graphic editing programs. Sorry about that. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, so we click, drag. Now you'll notice that in the layers palette, it starts to highlight in red where I'm going to put it. So if I released here, boom, it appears on the canvas and it appears where I dropped it. Now you'll notice if I grab another one, and what I'll actually do is I'll actually bring this up here so it's pretty much center screen, and go back to here. So if I grabbed another art asset and I come bring it over, so you'll notice that if I want to put it between this asset and this layer, I want to use this red line. But if I want to put it into this folder, I want to move over the folder so that it becomes red, like that. And that tells me that I'm going to, if I release, I'll drop it, boop, inside that folder. So if I expand this, see, there it is. And this is also a time that I can show you when you open and close folders how it begins to display a list. So I've closed that folder, you can't see the contents, open it, there's that piece that I just dragged in. And as you can see, it's plonked it in the middle of the image. It'll put it in the middle of your current view. So that's where that image is. Now you can drag them around, and quite simply it's a case of click, hold, then drag it. And again, you'll see it will highlight in red where it's going to put it. So if I want to drag it down here and just put it between these pieces, there we go. If I want to pick it up, put it into my walls folder, do that. Same with this piece. That's a piece of wall, I want it up there. So I drag it around. And as you see, as you add more pieces, the list starts to get longer. So that's how the assets work in the folders in the layers palette. Pretty simple. Also, it is pretty important to understand something about the layers palette, that it draws the artwork according to the order of everything in the layers palette, and it starts drawing top down. So if I just add so here's a layer that I can just draw on, so I'm going to put it up the top. So you'll notice that this layer, its artwork is over the top of the layer below it. But if I change their order, now this one is over the top of this one. This becomes important when you need to layer certain things for effects. So basically it's always a good idea to understand that each layer is drawn. So for example, here is your eye, and you're looking down at your artwork, and each layer will be drawn at its position. So there's our paper layer. So each layer is drawn in the position that you were viewing if you were viewing from the top down. It's just important to know that. So let me get rid of that. Now I'll get rid of these, and we'll start putting in our walls. I'll put this down over here. So we'll actually start making a map. So let's begin. Now I'm making a 10 by 10 map card for my endless dungeon crawl product that I'm eventually going to publish one day after I make heaps and heaps of cards. But for these cards, we need to have a wall all the way around it, and there are doors at specific positions. So let me just go and grab so I'm going to grab my catacombs map tiles. Let's just get in there. Oh, it's being a bit silly for me. Okay, so we're using our stone wall overlays. Here we go. So let us begin by putting walls all the way around our map. Oops. So see how I dragged that to the canvas? I didn't drag it to the map layout, so it thought it wants me to open the actual image. Because unfortunately, that's how Photoshop works. Photoshop likes you to just drag it onto the canvas, And I think it also works if you drag it into the layers palette as well. Clip Studio Paint doesn't like it like that. It wants to know exactly that you want to put it in this piece of artwork and where you want it to go in the layers structure. So over here, put it in our walls. Now, to move objects or layers when we've placed them, we want to use a tool called the Object tool. You can see it over here. It's also called the Operations tool. It has this little icon which looks like a box with a mouse pointer pointing at it. Now, this tool is a bit of a multifunction tool, because you'll see that when you have a layer selected with this tool active, it has this sort of controller all the way around the layer. There's a little handle on the top, there's handles all the way around. Now, as you mouse over each of these little handles, you'll notice that the mouse pointer changes. So for example, this little handle at the top, if you click and drag, it actually allows you to rotate your selected layer. If you go and use one of these little handles on the side, enlarge or small. So it's good to know that that's how those work, but we don't want to use those. So I'm just going to get rid of that. I will draw in this piece again. Now, with this tool selected, we can just, and if we click inside this box, I think it also worked. Yeah, we've got to click inside the box. You'll notice that we can drag this element around. And you'll notice also that the edges of this box, which are the controller, will snap to our grid. That's very important because it means that we can just quickly grab this, put it down here, and it snaps into position. And we've moved our first piece into the position that we want. Then let's just say we want to put, the next piece in, drag it in, put it in the position we want in our layers browser, and then, move it into position. And it will snap into the point where we want. It is that simple. So I'm going to just drag in a bunch of pieces and quickly put them on my edges to build the edge of my adventure map. Just like so. And let us put in some walls down the side. So we did the corners of our walls. Now, I'm building these map cards. Now, an important thing with these map cards is that I need to have, if I just add in another layer that I can draw on, actually I'll keep this. So I'm going to double click, rename it, I'm going to call it pencils. Because everything that I draw on, I usually give it a name. So for example, you can see all the layers here have the name of the file that they're from, and this little icon here demonstrates that this is linking to artwork external to this canvas. So this is external artwork. It's actually I'm trying to remember what it's actually called. Has a specific name, the name of which escapes me right at the moment. You don't really need to know the name. You just need to know that this icon means that it's actually using artwork that has been drawn from outside this canvas. It's a placed image. But what I was actually trying to say is I'm building this map card. Now, the idea of these map cards is that each map card will be placed next to another map card. There could be one there, could be one there. And that's how you build up the Endless Dungeon. But there are doorways. So for example, there'd be a doorway there to enable characters to move between this one and this one. And it could be another one here. Now I have them set in specific positions on these map cards. Those positions are halfway on each quarter. So there should be a doorway here, a doorway here, one here, one there, one there, and here, and down here, and down here. That way people can move between each of the different tiles. So that's how my endless dungeon builder works. So I'll just hide that. So what that means is we need to go and find some cornerstones and doorways in our map tiles. I think my computer's being a little slow today. So we grab that and drag it over, put it into our walls. Go back to the move object and just put it into position. Oh, I'm so used to dragging onto the canvas. I do a lot of drawing in Clip Studio Paint because I prefer it as a drawing program over Photoshop. But I don't build maps a lot in Clip Studio Paint. Although I do make the artwork for the map tiles because I like drawing in this program. So we've got some doors here, and where else do I need doorways? So down here. So again, I'm just dragging it in, putting it into position using the fact that it will snap right where I want it to go. There we go. And then I need bottom and top. And another one. And then we need the ones up the top here, which is these assets. So we put that one over there and just draw in another copy. Put it there. So that's our entrances to each adjoining map tile or map card. Go back to our the rest of our art assets. These are the standard wall sections. So I've got walls on the eastern side. I've got walls on the northern side, western side walls, and southern walls. And then I've got the corners. I like to keep the cornerstones and doorways in a separate folder. Same thing with passageways and dead ends. So if I go in this folder, you'll see there's all the passageways and dead ends. It just helps to organize things a little bit. So if you're hunting around for assets and you're sort of like, oh, where is that? Where's that thing? I'm looking for that one piece that does this. That's generally where you're going to find them. And so what we're going to do is we're going to turn this into a little bit of quarters. So I need to put the edges in. Like that. And it's just a case of, when using map tiles, it's just a case of slowly building up layer by layer the components that you need to make your map. Now you notice that the positioning of this window, so this window that I'm bringing up, I've got it over to the side, so that way I can see what I'm working on in the background, and I can see where I need to drag it to in the layers palette. I can also, I can also look around at what the different pieces I've got to work with. So as I come and fill in the walls. Now, you don't have to start by blocking in the walls first. I just find building in the walls, it helps me work out what pieces are going to go where. So I'll start with putting in the walls like this. So that way I know, oh, there's that room there, there's a room going to be there. So this will be a pretty simple map. So what we'll do is we'll actually put the walls down through here. So that way we are enclosing that quarter. Just got to be careful that I don't accidentally double click the files in the file browser, otherwise it'll think I'm trying to open it in Photoshop. There we go. And now we need along the bottom and a corner piece. So we need these ones. So, but what I might actually do is I might actually put a doorway into this quarter here. So we need one more. So this one will go here. And I'm going to actually hide my pencils layer because I've got the doorways in. I just needed my pencils layer to remind me where I needed my doorways. And then we'll put go. So now we need a doorway through here. So again, oh, what's going on? I think my Wacom drivers have crashed on me. It's the one problem with running an old. I'm using an very old graphics tablet. The drivers for my Wacom tablet have a habit of crashing, so I quite often need to restart the drivers. So hopefully that will do it. Okay, so there we go. So we want to grab this piece, which is the other side of our doorway, put it here, and then this piece, which is the top, and put it just there, like that. So that's our doorway coming through here. So we're going to do, so maybe this down here, maybe it's a bit more of a maze. So we'll play around with this. So let's grab our passageways. So how could we do this? So we could have so it comes into, say, a passageway along here, which turns here. So we're going to need, so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to get rid of this one. Now this is one of the good things, it can be a good thing, can be a bad thing, about using this particular tool, is that it will grab whatever you click on, or whatever the mouse is over when you click. So see how I'm picking up different layers as I click? So I originally had that layer selected. So you can see in the layers palette here, it's come up and selected this one. But I want to change this square, the artwork that's in this map square. So if I click on that bit of artwork, it's now jumped down the list and it selected this item. So I can now get rid of it. So I've just deleted it. I'm going to use, where is it? This piece of artwork, because it has the corner piece here built in. Whereas that corner, it just had the edge. It had this section here. So if I grab that, drag it out, plonk it down, put it in position, there we go. So as you can see, the wall is turning around here. We will need to put a piece across here. So we just jump back up, find the, so we need these guys. Let's use this one. Put it there and put it in position. So that's that corridor coming in this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to zoom in a bit. So I'm going to zoom in to 100%. I'm going to move over so that we have, so we can see this at 100%. This is what our map will look like to our players if they zoom in 100%. So we'll actually make this section at this view. So let us put in, let's go back to our passageways. Okay, so let us grab this one. And we're going to put it there. And then we're going to use another piece of passageway. Let's use this piece of passageway. And we'll put it here. So you notice one thing that's happening at the moment is as I drag in each new piece of artwork, it's actually appearing here, which is actually the middle of our map. Can sometimes be a little bit of a pain in the bum that it puts it in the direct center, but that's just, yeah, you get used to how the little quirks of this program work. So for example, if I drag in this one, see how it's appeared there? That's the center of our artwork, and then we just drag it, put it there. Another piece, we'll just use this piece. Plonk it there, and then we need another one here. There we go. So again, I'm going to get rid of this. So I just click on it, little trash can, boom, it's gone. And then I need to use, where is it? This one here. So we'll use this one. Drag it over. Grab it. Drag it down into position. We then need some wall sections that go vertical. Or passageway sections that are vertical to go here. Oops, that didn't snap position. And then we need another one. There we go. So now the question becomes, how do we get into this room? Do we put a doorway here? Do we put a doorway here? How about we put it over here? So we need to go back up. We need a wall on the western side, which will be this one. And plonk, there we go. So that's our passageway coming around. We need a wall over here. So just scroll up. Yep, here we go. like that. And that's that. So we've got a corridor coming round. We've got exits off to this quarter. We've got exits off to the other map tiles. Now we need to put in this corridor coming around and an exit into this room. And we need to put in the walls of this room. So I'm just going to... So as you can see in our layers palette, the contents of our walls folder, it's getting pretty full of all these different assets. Pardon me. That's why if you start to want to work in a different, say for example in the floors folder, you know, being able to just hide all the contents of that folder and then switch is pretty useful. But we're still working in that folder. Okay. So we need to put in some corners here. And just up in there. Like you could, if you wanted to, you could keep, so for example, the internal elements of this room, you could put them in a folder on their own. That way you could then, you know, as you put more pieces in, you could go, oh, well, I want to change the contents of that room. I don't want to get rid of what I've made, but if I have all the pieces in a separate folder, I could just hide that folder. So I'll do that with a different room. So that way you can see how handy it can be to put elements into a different folder if you want to change bits and pieces later on down the track. That way you could just hide the contents of this room without actually, you know, having to rebuild the entire map. Okay, so I'm now going to go back to our passageways. And just there, and one more. Just there like that. So we could make a doorway here and a doorway here, but I'm actually going to close this off. So we go back up, just use one of our western wall sections to close that off. So that way you can get down in here. So each of these quarters becomes a little cul-de-sac that our players could explore, but then to get to other parts of the map they have to basically come back out and explore back around. So just like that. So that's that sort of that area worked out. So you could get into here, this section, you could get into this section, but you can't get over to the other side. It's actually closed off. So let's slide across to, let's do this quarter. Okay. So what shall we do in here? So we could divide this again into more, so we could go quarters by quarters. Put that there. So if we did this quarters by quarters, so let's just say we have a 2 by 3 room here. And then we have a 2x2 room below it. So just here we have another 2x2, or it could be, you know, across could be 3x2, which would mean there'd be another little room here. We might actually do that. So we then have this piece, this corner comes and drops in that location there. So we can have a doorway getting into here. So we need a wall section. So this means I'm going to need to change that. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to... No, it's facing... I was thinking I could put it here, but it's facing the wrong direction. Or we make this a big 3x3 room. Let's make this a 3x3 room. So you get in here, and then you can get into here. Sounds interesting. So then we have to... So we then have to make a little corner here. Now we need just a cornerstone there, and doorway cornerstones here. And we can grab those in this folder, if it's going to let us. There we go. So that's the piece we need. So that caps off that corner. And then we need this one. Right there, like that. So we've got entries here, and then this will be a big 3x3 room. So how's your day panning out? My week is just starting. That would be why today is called Monday Morning Map Build. My week is just starting. I try and do a map build each Monday morning. Some of them are tutorials, just like what we're doing now. Like I probably will cut up pieces of this video to make a tutorial webpage that describes making adventure maps with Clip Studio. Some of the other live streams that I do, they are lore live streams where I'm actually discussing and drawing elements of adventures that I'm making. And I also hope to do in the future some live streams where I'm actually making the 3D objects that I render for my adventure maps, because I like to use a lot of 3D rendering in my adventure maps. I probably won't stream the actual rendering process because I think it'll be quite boring to watch a little bar move across the screen as my poor old slow computer tries to draw the 3D objects and render them. But I'll see if I can live stream the actual creation of the meshes. I think that would be pretty interesting. Well, I think it would be pretty interesting. People might sort of like go, "No, you're boring as watching paint dry," which, you know, maybe I am that boring. Hope not. Okay, so I'll stop raving now. So now I need to change, because I'm going to do a little 2x2 room here, but I need to change this entrance. So I've selected him. click the little trash can. We're going to put in a piece of wall. Yep, put it in there. So this is where this wall is. So we need to have an end piece, an end cap there, and an end cap here. So let's grab those. So we need, where is it? I think we need this one. Whoops. That one should go there, and I'll have to put that piece back. See, that's the problem of using this of using this tool, is that it's very useful that it'll pick up whatever's under the map, under the pointer when you click, but if you misclick and you happen to click something else that you didn't mean to pick up, it can be a bit of the pain in the boom that it picks up stuff that you didn't quite want it to grab, as it did just then. Which is usually why I like to sort of scroll to, because you can see we've got a lot of pieces in this list now. A lot of war elements. So sometimes you misclick and you can actually, it'll jump down here and grab that bit when you didn't quite mean to. So sometimes it's a good idea to scroll to the top and continue placing pieces at the top of the list. Just like that. So that way, when it drops them in, it's on top of everything else and you can see it and grab it. And, just plunk, drag it round, get it where you want it. So, and we just need a wall piece there, and that will be this quarter of this map done. See, there we go. Oh, we do need a little cornerstone right there. And that's it right there. So we just drag it over, put it in our layers palette, and then grab it and put it right where we want it. Okay, so that quarter is done. This quarter's done. This one's, it's just a big room. So now let's finish off by doing this one. So what shall we do here? Will we do something like this? Or we could, to be annoying, we could just make this into a weird little maze with some dead ends. I actually like doing that to my players, is having like a squiggly bit of maze that they have to figure out which direction to go. So let us put in these pieces. So we could add, because this one comes through to here, we could do the same thing here, which I like the idea of, but just something different. So I'm just going to delete that out, but I'm going to make it that they have to sort of squiggly come through to get through. And one way is just going to be a complete dead end. So let us grab some passageway sections. Okay, so let's just use this. Now, if you'll notice that while you've got a piece selected and you haven't let go of it, you can actually scroll up and down the list. So if you see, if I let go of that there now, it'll drop into that place. But let's just say I want to put it down somewhere lower. You can actually, as you move near the end of the list, it'll actually scroll up and down. See how I'm going up and down the list? So I'm just going to put that there. It's good to know that you can sort of move through the list if you need to. There we go. So I'm going to make it turn around and just come back here. So we need to have this corner turn. There we go. And then we need to have just the same thing on the other side. Just like that. There we go. So let's come to here. So we then need to have this turn around. So we probably should change this piece. So I'm going to delete that piece. And same thing with that one, because it was missing the cornerstone in the edges. So we want to have, where is it? This piece. Scroll back up to the top. We could have put it down the bottom, but you know, I'll put it up the top of the list. There we go. And same thing over this side. Actually, I'm going to put this piece in first. So we've got, so it comes along around like that. Oop, I'll put the cornerstones in for there. There we go, just like that. And then we want to use this piece. Have that go there. And then we need these passageway elements. One there, and then we need to come down here. So just like that. Now we could put a room in here, so we could have let's just say we have a 3x3 room, but I wanted to put in some dead ends to play with people. So I'm actually going to have this come along and go a dead end, and maybe come back around and a dead end. So how should we do this? So we'll have this dead end. It will go here. So force people to come around here. Like that. Then we have some passageway sections. Now, this is where we want to have a corner. Have it come around like that. So what we'll actually do is we'll have them come around to another dead end here. So let's grab that dead end back out again. Just like that. And then we need to have the cornering. there's so this section. Now, this is where we need to put some cornerstones here, and just a flat section of wall. So let's drop back, grab a flat section of a wall. Get my words out. So there we go, like that. Then we need cornerstones here and here, which are in our cornerstones and doorways. So actually, we'll grab this one while I remember. Put it there. And this one, where is it? This one here. This one caps off that. And I think that is all of our walls. So let's just go fit to screen. There we go. That's all of our walls for our 10 by 10 map put in place. So what we want to do here, because we don't want this to move. We don't want to accidentally pick up tiles and move them. So what we do want to do is close down the folder so that it doesn't take up, all the space. And then with the folder selected, see this little icon here called Lock Layer. So if we click that, it now means that we can't accidentally grab parts of that layer and accidentally move them around. I'm clicking to try and pick up pieces and they won't move because I can't select them because I have that little lock. To unlock it, select that folder, click the little lock symbol, and unlocks the whole lot. You can now pick up elements in that layer and you can move them around. But we don't want to, so we just go back up the top, select that layer, lock, and it locks all. See how because I locked the folder, now everything in that folder has a little lock icon. That's what we want. I'm now going to go and do our floor. So I'm going to expand our floor folder. It obviously has nothing in it right now. I'm going to pop up to where I have my floor assets, which is our catacombs rock floor. And here are all of our floor assets. So we've got some steps, different kinds of steps, so we could actually make us go up and down layers, which I might actually do. That'd be something interesting. And we've got our floor section. There's like pit traps, which we will use because I think every map should have a pit trap. There's nothing funnier than watching a player fall through a pit trap. And again, we just click, drag, drop it into our wall. Not this time, I've put it in the wrong folder. I've accidentally dragged and dropped it into this folder. Now, will it allow me to drag it out? Yes, it will. Because I've dragged it out of that folder and I'm putting it into our floor folder. So it did accidentally fall into the walls folder where I didn't want it. I dragged it out, put it back into the floor folder, and now I can just put it where I want it. So I've got these for quickly blocking in large sections. I've got 2x2 sections of floor, which I'm using here. And we have some, do we have 2x1? No, we don't. Most of the floor tiles, or most of pretty much all map tiles that I make, are 1 grid square tiles. So they're 1x1. is a good way of thinking of it. So we'll zoom in 100%, and we'll just do this quarter by quarter. So starting over here. Sometimes putting in the floor can be a bit laborious because the floor is quite often the large sections of the same sort of tile. But how you break it up and make it interesting, you know, is the secret to building an interesting adventure map. But for this room, I'm pretty much just going to rely on the fact that it's just a big room. So the floor in this room is going to be, you know, it'll be interesting when we put the contents into this room. The floor is pretty, you know, stock standard. It's just a floor. So we've just got to fill it with our map tiles. And we'll do something with the other quarters of the map that'll make them a little bit more interesting than just a big vacant room. But you've got to have your boring bits to know what the exciting bits are. So just a few more tiles. So when I go to do the next room, which will be the quarter below this quarter, we'll do it in a special way. We'll actually put it in a folder separate to the rest of this map to show the advantage of putting rooms in their own folders at times. So that's that room pretty much done. Okay, so let's go down to this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a staircase that comes up here into here. So this will be sort of flat round through here. But we want to use a staircase. So I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to call it Raised Room. Because this room will be raised. And it's a folder within the floor folder. Now, I don't want to put anything in there just yet, so I'm just going to go back down to here. Pardon me. And I'm just going to continue putting pieces in. So they're not going into that folder. Into the raised room folder just yet. But we'll get there in a moment. Because this section I want it to be all sort of the same layer. Because it would be weird if we created these and you came in through this level and there's steps there, and it's sort of continuity sort of goes a bit out the window. Oop. So I accidentally put that piece into my, see how it's up a bit? So I've accidentally put it in this folder, so I want to drag it back out. So let's see that red line? I needed it to be, instead of there, I needed it to be down there. Easy fix. Okay, so this is where it's going to get interesting. Okay, so the reason why I'm doing this the way I'm doing it, that I'm going to use a subfolder, is that I want the steps, and I'm using our basic steps. If I can get in there. Come on. It doesn't like the double click of my pen. The sadness of using old gear. Okay, so I'm going to use these tiles. So if I drag this in, just so you can see. Now, see how there's shadowing? And this is actually a 2x1. The whole idea of these tiles is that if I put this here, it's overshadowing the tile below it, which is what I want. So it actually makes it look like it's over the top of the tile that's below it, because it's coming up in steps. So I'm going to put that one there, and by keeping it in this folder, I've got it over the top of what's below it. So I'm going to use that one there. I'm then going to use this one down here. So see how it's over the top of that tile that's below it? That's what we want. So we're going to use a flat section here, because that's where, actually, getting back to what I was saying, that having a piece of staircase the moment you come through the door will look weird. That would look weird, having it right there. So I'm going to move it to here, go back to this section. I'm then going to go back up to our floor and just pop in. There we go. Just pop in some tiles. So we need to fill in this little area. There we go. So that's coming up correctly. Now we go back to our raised room section, and then we're going to need a flat piece. So we're going to need that there at that turn of the corner, and we're going to need another flat piece at this turn of the corner, and then we need to put in 2 more flat pieces because we want to have some background to these steps that are going to go over the top. So this will all make sense in a moment. So we do that like that, but then we go back to our basic steps. There we go, and we come down the bottom here. So we're going to grab these ones. So we're going to grab these. I'm going to put these ones right here. So see now what looks like we've got some steps coming up. And so we need these in the opposite direction. There we go. So it looks like there's a couple of steps, flat piece, couple of steps, flat piece. And then we're stepping down, flat area, stepping down, flat area. That just adds a little bit of interesting area. And then again, I'm just going to grab a 2x2, which would fill the majority of just this chamber, just like that. And then quickly fill in these rooms. These floor areas. Now, if you're a member of my Patreon, later this afternoon, you will be able to download this map from the Art Assets browser I have on my website. Because I've got a members only area in my website, and I upload all the artwork that I make during my streams. Oops. I accidentally dropped that to the canvas, not to the layers palette. So yeah, I upload a flattened image of this map, and that's that quarter completed. So I'll be uploading like a WebP of this map, so people can enjoy it if they want and use it in their own games. I'll also be uploading the Clip Studio raw editable file of this map. That way you can, if you don't like, let's just say this section of the map, if you don't like it, you could take it out and put in your own section. You know, for example, if I'm going to come and put a 2x2 pit trap in that entire room. Maybe you're like, oh, I don't like that. Why have a 2x2 pit trap in an entire room? That's just weird. Why do that? So you could come along and you could take that piece out and change it. And that's for wizard class members of my Patreon, whom I dearly love. I dearly love my wizard class patrons, because it is the support of you dear people, you dear to my heart. It is the support of people like that that keeps what I do alive. Without your support, I'd be not making art. I'd be on the streets. As a street performer I once saw said, when he was trying to get tips and donations from performing, he said, you know, it's your donations that keep me off the streets and not selling drugs to your kids. Bit of bad black humor, but it's kind of true. Yes, give me all the monies. Now, I think I'm putting some pieces where they shouldn't be. Yep. Okay, so I've put these pieces in my raised room section because I want to show something later on. So hang on, that piece should not be in there. This piece should not be in there, and neither should this piece. It should be that. Naughty pieces. Okay. Because this is the cool thing about building pieces in folders, so that way you can hide them later on if you don't like them. Let me just put these, fill in this bit of floor. So there we go. I'll come back over here. So the reason why, I'll grab that folder, just bring it to the top. There we go. So let's just say, you know, we've put in this staircase and we put in this floor. Let's just say we go, oh, don't really like how that looks. But I don't want to get rid of it. We don't want to lose it. We still want it, but we don't want to use it right now. Let's just say we come along, we go, okay, I'm just going to hide that folder. Just going to put that over there. So I'm just going to hide that folder. So it's still, those elements are still there, but they're hidden. So we could come along and we could replace them. We could just come and put new pieces in. But I'm going to put that back because I do want that in there. Okay, coming back here, so we're just going to fill this in. Yeah, and but yeah, I have lots of different map tile packs now. This is the artwork I'm using in this pack is the Catacombs art pack. You can mix and match the packs. So, for example, you could use one of my. I've got some packs called the Dungeon Map Tile packs, 1 through to, I think it's up to 6 now. 1 through to 6. You could mix, say, like the Catacombs pack, the floor from the Catacombs pack, which is this sort of chunky, blocky floor in sort of concrete-y type material. You could mix that with, say, the walls from Dungeon Map Tile 6, which look like old stone masonry monastery walls. You could mix and match. It's completely up to you. Oops. Okay, so I've accidentally grabbed a piece that I didn't want to, so I'm just going to put that one there and put this one back where it should go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lock that folder, so hopefully I won't mess it up. Okay, so that's that section done. And we've got one more quarter to go. So what I'm going to do in this section is I'm going to put in a lot of pit traps, because pit traps as a dungeon master are a hilarious thing to play with. Let's start with putting in one of these. So let's put it there. So if they need to get around here, they've got to get past that. Then we might have... Now you'll notice that I've got the artwork for these has wooden planks going over it. You could easily just, use, if you don't like that, switch it out, put in that one that doesn't have wooden planks. I like to have wooden planks to show that there's a pit trap there. This is how you get around it. But then I do things where maybe the wooden planks are old and rotten. So players may come along and go, we can just go straight over the wooden planks, no problem at all. And then as they're going over, it's like creak, crack. Oh no, they fall down. Yeah, it's up to you how you play it. But I like pit traps. They're such a simple trap. They're easy to detect. They're easy to avoid. It's really only silly players that will get killed by a pit trap. People who are seasoned adventurers, they will know to have rope and a 10-foot pole. And hopefully they will know that usually on the other side of a pit trap that you can see is a hidden pit trap that you can't see. So don't just necessarily go and run and jump, because then you'll fall through the pit trap you can't see. And the game master will laugh heartily. At least I will. right up until the point that me, as a player, will fall through a pit trap. Because yes, even I have been done by pit traps. I've fallen to my doom on many a pit trap. It's sad, so sad. There we go. And just a few more. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that there and do a big bit there. This one. Right there. And this should be the last piece to go there. There we go. So that should be, if I fit the screen, that is that map card completed. So what you would do from here is you would save out the completed map card. And how you do that is rather simple. Just like every other program, you go File, Save As. You find where you want to put it. So for this example, I'm going to put it on my desktop, and I'm going to call it get rid of that. So let's call it map card dash sample. There we go. Now you'll want to save it in a format. You'll notice that this little drop down list here says save as file type, gives you an option of different things. You want to save it as a Clip Studio format. That is the, so it'll put a dot clip on the end of your file name. That tells Windows and it tells Clip Studio Paint that is a raw working file for Clip Studio Paint. That's like, for example, how Photoshop has PSD files, and GIMP has I think it's XCF files. They are the raw working files that the program keeps all of its information data in. So for example, it'll have, as it's just writing to disk, and this will show how my poor potato PC, how long it takes. So it will keep all of the folder information, it'll keep all the layer information, it'll keep all the layer artwork, it keeps all that data, whether the folders are locked or unlocked, all that information. And I'm actually going to lock that folder because I don't want to move any of these pieces. It'll keep all that information all together, all in the one place, and that is a clip file. That's the Clip Studio Paint default file. So I'm just going to file save because I just changed it. Now you obviously can't use a clip file in a virtual tabletop role-playing application. You can't import a clip file into Foundry, you can't import it into Roll20, you can't import it into Fantasy Grounds or whatever program you use. You need to convert this into a flattened image such as a JPEG, a PNG, or a WebP. I recommend WebP because that gives you the best file compression to image quality ratio. Probably the next step up from WebP will be JPEG, but I find WebP has that balance to image compression to image quality, which is always the trade-off. That's the trade-off when you're trying to save file size. Because when you're playing as a game master, you've got to remember your players have to download this map. So the bigger it is, the longer it's going to take for them to download. The longer they're going to be, if they've got like a really bad you know, a potato PC as bad as me, or a really bad internet connection, it could be taking a long time for them to download. If you've got animated adventure maps, they're definitely going to be sitting around for a while waiting for that whole thing to download. Yeah, you need to have a compressed image. So how you save it out is you go File, Export Single Layer, WebP. That's what you want to use. So you go File, Export Single Layer. So it's going to actually so all these layers over here, all these layers, they're all going to get turned into one. They're all going to get flattened. And the program does that for you. So Export Single Layer, WebP. It has the other options here if you want. So there's JPEG, there's PNG. I wouldn't worry about TIFF or Targa or BMP or the you know, Photoshop big documents. Don't worry about that stuff. You don't need it. WebP is pretty much what you want to aim for. Some programs don't use WebP, but pretty much WebP is getting more and more use these days, so I'd aim for WebP. So, and then obviously go and, you know, I'm just going to put it on my desktop, call it map card sample WebP, save. Now it comes up with this window. This window is basically asking you, it's asking you a whole heap of questions, but the most important question is how much compression to use. So, and you've got it just here. So WebP settings, prioritize quality, prioritize file size. You want to go to prioritize file size, quality. This is how much it's going to degrade the artwork to get better image compression. And more image compression, smaller file size, but the more the image degrades. I find you can get away with coming down to about 70 quite well. 70, it'll look quite good. Now, all the other information that you've got here, you don't really need to worry about. Don't bother changing anything. This is all things like, you know, do you want to change it from, so it's a full color image, do you want to change it to a specific kind of color? Do you want to go to RGB or gray or whatever like that? Do you want to change the scaling ratio? Don't bother with any of that stuff. Saving out a WebP, you just want to worry about this. What sort of image compression you're using. Once you've got it set, just click OK. And it'll give you an example. So you might want to open it up, and it's actually at 17% zoom. So we want to view it at 100%. So this is viewing the image that's been exported out. So it's compressed. As you can see, it looks pretty much what you made. Like there's a little, like if you zoomed right in, you could probably see some areas where there's a bit of jagginess because of the image compression, but generally, you know, that looks pretty good. That should be what you want. And then you just go, okay. And you're done. You can then import that image into your favorite role-playing virtual tabletop program. You could add, if you could either at this point add in features. So for example, I've got a folder here called features. I usually put in things like furniture and 3D rendered objects and whatnot to, you know, because obviously a big vacant room is boring as batshit. What you want to do is put furniture in there, but I'm going to leave that for another tutorial for another day. This is just on map building because I've pretty much taken up 2 hours of time, and I'd be very amazed if everybody stuck with me for the whole 2 hours. And also I've probably talked myself hoarse. So thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy this little tutorial on how to use map tiles in Clip Studio Paint, or actually how to build adventure maps in Clip Studio Paint, please like, subscribe, add comments. I love getting feedback. But for the moment, I'm going to go and have some lunch. So I'm going to say thank you very much and see you later.